and get started. So I'll call the meeting to order. And up first is the Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone would rise, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America,
and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, good evening, everyone. Up first is the approval of Agenda 1.02. Do we have a motion? Anyone?
I move the board approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Any discussion on the agenda? Seeing and hearing nothing, we're ready for a vote, please.
AJ,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Angie,
yes,
Nick,
Yes.
Kim Marie,
Muted.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
motion carries.
All right. Next up, after an absence of a month or two, we've got Honoring Excellence. So Dr. Tucker, Dallas Ackerman, I believe that's for you guys.
Yeah, thank you to our tech department and Sandra and others that have assisted in getting us going this evening. As we shared earlier in an update, we did provide kind of a waiting room for Honoring Excellence, as well as opportunity for public comment, and put some guidelines on our agenda on how people could access the public comment portion. We'll look to continue that now as we move forward in hopes of getting together sooner than later in person. But wanted to turn it over to Dallas for tonight's Honoring Excellence as we migrate several people out of a waiting room and joining us here with our board meeting this evening. Dallas?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Tucker. Good to be back, and thanks for letting us honor some special individuals tonight. We have 4 students that we're going to be recognizing here first in just a moment. I think they're now joining us here on the Zoom, and then we'll introduce both our teacher and support employee of the year in just a moment. But as you likely know, I guess this is year 2 of our Grow Your Own Teachers program, and some folks have just been doing some amazing work with that. And we have Dee Rosecrans. I'm going to turn it over to Dee, who's going to talk about the program. I believe Andrea Dixon-Seahorn, Dr. Dixon-Seahorn, will introduce our 4 recipients. I believe we have with us now. So Mr. Rosecrans, take it away.
Thank you, Dallas. As you know, Grow Your Own Teachers, GYOT, fondly known around here anyway, is a human resource department initiative to maximize the identification, recruitment, and hiring processes of Liberty Public School students of color into full-time teaching positions. These 4 teachers, these future teachers, Tiffany, Kennedy, Michaela, and Zashan, who will be introduced formally here in a moment, will each receive $2,500 per academic year towards generally the cost of tuition, books, fees. These funds are renewable for a period of up to 4 academic years. In exchange for these funds, the recipients must satisfy all the requirements as outlined in the Grow Your Own Teachers Agreement. After graduation from college, the 4 recipients will return to their home school district, Liberty Public Schools, as full-time teachers for a minimum of 3 years. Ladies, our Board of Education members are very strong supporters of this program, and we cannot thank them enough. And I will turn over to Dr. Dixon-Seahorn, who will formally introduce our 2nd GYOT cohort group to our Board of Education and the public.
Good evening, everybody. We are so excited about this special announcement. And so I am going to, without further ado, introduce to our Board of Education our 4 Grow Your Own Teacher Award recipients. And so we'll start with Liberty High School. And from Liberty High School, we would like to introduce to you Tiffany Saxton. Tiffany, if you would just wave at everyone so they can see who you are. Wave again. Tiffany is joined by her mom, Teresa Saxton. And Tiffany, has plans to get started at Maple Woods Community College for the first 2 years and then move on from there to a 4-year university. So we are very excited about that, and we celebrate you with a silent applause. And there's a reaction that we can hit on our computers, and so I hope you see that clap there, Tiffany. So congratulations to you. The next person we would like to present to everyone from Liberty High School is Kennedy Jones. Kennedy is joined by her parents this evening, Troy and Beatrice Jones. Go ahead and wave at us so we can see who you are. And Kennedy also has plans to get started on her journey to becoming a future teacher at Maple Woods Community College. So again, we celebrate you for that. We're very excited for the both of you coming out of Liberty High School. So we'll give you a silent applause as well. Next, we have coming out of Liberty North, Miss Michaela Armstead. Michaela, if you'll wave at us. And Michaela is joined by her dad, James Armstead, and mom, Melanie Madonia. So would you go ahead and wave at us, Michaela, so we can see who you are? And she has plans to get started on her journey at Arizona State University. So we applaud you today, and let's go ahead and give her a silent applause as well. And then last but not least, Zayshawn Cheatham out of Liberty North High School, who is joined this evening by her family, her parents, Wayne and Letitia Cheatham. If you would go ahead and wave at us, Zayshawn. And Zayshawn has plans to get started on her journey at Northwest Missouri State University. No bias on my part, but I am a former Bearcat. So you go, Zayshawn, and we're gonna salute you at this time. So let's please give her a silent applause as well. And so we salute all of you, and we're so proud of you already in advance. And at this time, this concludes our Honoring Excellence portion of the board meeting tonight. Congratulations.
That is awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Dixon Seahorn, and congratulations again to all of those recipients. Thank you much for being with us here tonight. Huge accomplishment. We just wish all you guys the best of luck in the future. Before we go, and many of you have been supporting us with this in recent weeks. Of course, in the spring, we always have many recognitions of students and staff, and we had a chance just in the last few weeks to name not only our Support Employee of the Year for Liberty Public Schools, but also our Teacher of the Year. And first, I'm going to introduce, at least on my screen, kind of in the lower right-hand corner, she is Josie Kirk, who is named our Support Employee of the Year. And I'm going to read a little bit about her release, and then we'll give her a virtual round of applause. How about that? So in a surprise virtual online meeting Tuesday morning, April 28th, Liberty Public Schools announced that longtime KidZone site supervisor at Shoal Creek Elementary, Miss Josie Kirk, had been selected as the LPS 2021 Support Employee of the Year. Ms. Kirk has been a loyal member of the Liberty Public Schools team for the past 19 years, all of them at Shoal Creek Elementary. She has served in her current role as site supervisor for KidZone for the past 15 years. She becomes the 11th LPS Support Employee of the Year recipient since the program was developed in 2010, and the first staff member from the KidZone program to receive this recognition. Many of you have likely seen her show up on some of our social media platforms. I told Josie she's like our Teacher of the Year, that they're rock stars on social media, as they've received all kinds of support of well wishes. And Josie has been pretty amazing because I think she's responded to every note of congratulations and every message. So let's give Josie Kirk a big round of applause. And thank you for being here tonight, Josie. Next, I guess it was just a few days later, we introduced Summer Kelly as our LPS Teacher of the Year. And there she is, surrounded by her Liberty Academy colleagues, and then joined by over a dozen LPS officials on a Zoom teleconference meeting. Yes, we're very familiar with those. Back on Monday, May the 4th, Summer Kelly was named the 2021 LPS District Teacher of the Year. Some interesting things about Miss Kelly is it did not take her long to be tabbed with the nickname Mother Hen or Mom due to her nurturing nature and relationship building habits. And both Josie and Summer, we had some really nice videos produced that you may have been able to see over the last few weeks that kind of tell that story and just how vital role she serves at the Liberty Academy. Kelly becomes the 16th LPS District Teacher of the Year and now joins Sarah Langford as the only two teachers from Liberty Academy to receive this award, as Langford was Liberty Public Schools' second selection in program history, representing us back in the 06-07 school year. And what's exciting is now Summer will advance to the Regional Teacher of the Year competition, and I predict she will do very well in the next coming weeks. I know she is working on that packet, I'm sure, as we speak. So let's give Summer Kelly a big round of applause as well. And again, thank you both for joining us tonight. And before I go, and Dr. Vogler may mention this later in his HR report, but did want to also recognize and thank all of our retiring staff from the 1920 school year. We've been also starting to share their stories with everyone, and they've received a big response in recent days, and those features will continue over the course of the next week to 10 days. And a large group, I think maybe a record-breaking group of retirees, and logged hundreds and hundreds of hours serving our students and staff and families and communities. So again, appreciate the opportunity for us to share the good here tonight as part of Honoring Excellence. And you guys have a great rest of the meeting, and look forward to seeing everyone in person very soon.
Thank you, Dallas. And again, thank you for everyone that joined us. We'll allow you to exit so you can go about your evening. But again, thanks for joining us for this unique virtual Honoring Excellence. So again, congratulations to everyone.
All right. Thank you both. Now would normally be the time if we were in person where we take a break so we could come out and individually congratulate everyone. But of course, on behalf of the board, congratulations to all of our honorees tonight, and hopefully we will come across you in person very soon. But congratulations and best wishes. Next up is public comment, which is another thing that's been missing the last couple months. We provided the opportunity for people to submit ahead of time if they wish to address the board tonight. And I'm going to defer to Sandra to see if we had anyone submit anything by the deadline to speak to the board tonight.
Yep, no one was able to submit prior to the deadline.
Okay, so no public comment. We're hopeful that next month we'll be in person and we can get back to the regular way of doing things, but we'll just see where we're at that point. So next up is our consent agenda. Our adopted rules of parliamentary procedure, Robert's rules, provide for a consent agenda listing several items for approval of the board by single motion. Documentation concerning these items has been provided to all board members and the public in advance to assure an extensive and thorough review. Items may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any board member. Do we have a motion on the consent agenda?
I move the board approve consent agenda items 2.01 through 2.06.
All right.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing and hearing nothing, vote please.
AJ,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Angie,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Kim Marie,
Yes.
Andy. Motion carries.
All right. That brings us down to 3.01, and this will be our reports from administration. Dr. Tucker, you want to lead us through those?
Yeah, thank you. First off, 3.01 Academic Services Report, and I believe this evening we are going to pass the baton to Dr. Westfall to provide the Academic Services Report.
Yes, hello everyone. Thank you, Dr. Tucker. I just want to ride the wave of celebrations from Academic Services, which is saying a lot during this time of year. But we do have a lot to celebrate. The first thing I want to draw your attention to is the program evaluation that we submitted on behalf of College and Career Readiness. If I was just going to highlight one thing in there, it's just to continually celebrate Colleen Jones. She is constantly and continuously bringing business partners to us and just trying to build the capacity of internships and externships for our students. She's relentless, even in these times. It's, you know, a struggling time for businesses, and she just continues to work on that and partner with them. So you'll see that information in there, along with just our work that Dr. Moore is doing with all of our teams, but around real world learning. And so we're just here to celebrate that we get that opportunity and that it's still going. Outside of that, we have an update on summer school for you. So our numbers, we're still looking pretty strong for June virtual. We have 1,300 students. This is not a perfect, but a daily update from today is we're really close to about 500 of those being elementary and middle school. So we were really holding ground with our high school enrollment, and now it's starting to grow a little bit more. In addition to that, we're still working through our reentry planning, you know, with the team that Stephen Anderson is working on, and just trying to fill all the gaps of understanding with a face-to-face option for July. So we're still to really trying to make that work and just staying focused on the things that we need to do to get that done. We have given ourselves a deadline of June 1st to really be a no-go date, just to make sure that we have all of our safety and security things in place and all of the tools that we need to operate. The second thing we're excited to talk about is just the welcoming of our new kindergartners. So Dr. Seahorn has worked with her team extensively to create this virtual kindergarten roundup. We're very excited about it, and the principals have done such a good job of creating a variety of different ways that the parents can engage with our schools, from videos to virtual talks with the teams to tours of buildings. So I feel like they've really done a great job in trying to celebrate bringing in our new kids, and in this time of building relationships, what a great way to start with our new students. And then the final celebration was filled with a couple of tears. Dr. Moore worked with a K-12 team trying to set up a program for our teachers to go in and start cleaning up and closing up their classrooms for the year. And so several of you might have seen that on Facebook, where that brought some tears to teachers when they started thinking about their kids, but they were happy then to open the buildings this week for the students to collect their things and really just pick up all their items. So I just want to give a huge shout out to our people where we're touched in both happiness and then, you know, a little sadness of not being able to be with our people. And then last but not least, we did send out a very helpful senior survey just to get an idea of where our families were and our students were on all those really critical things like prom and graduation. And we're just operating off of the information that we get so that we can serve our parents and families and students that we can based on what they want from us. That's everything for academic services, and we appreciate everything that you do for us. Dr. Tucker.
Any questions of Dr. Westfall or Dr. Moore or Dr. Dixon Seahorn this evening?
Yeah, Dr. Westfall, on the summer school, I know certainly seems to be lower than past years. What do we typically get for in-person enrollment, at least the K through 8?
Thousands, so between 3,000 and 4,000. Yeah. Okay. So it's a significant drop, but it is helping us. Nick, the thing that we like about this is we are going to be able to give everyone summer school that wants it. And we're hoping, you know, by July's finish, we're offering 2 sessions, right? So that virtual session is We really set it up to meet the needs of those kids who we know. We made the classes intentionally small, and we're making sure that we have continual contact so we can really get some good learning out of this session for people who are opting back in, right? It's different when we push everybody into school virtually, but now people are choosing to come back. So I feel this is going to be a super rich experience for anyone who wants it, and we'll take anybody. And then, you know, we're just going to do our very best to get that face-to-face option going. And we have all these parameters that you are well aware of that we're trying to work with, but we're really planning forward. Like I said, Steve's team is, he's got it set up so that we can really pivot when the time comes on each decision, so that we can take it up till the moment when we have to say this isn't possible. And I don't think that will happen, but we're ready for that. So I feel pretty good about that. Yeah.
Good. And then just one follow-up question. I know kindergarten's a tough time, right? It's an interesting transition. I know summer school is sometimes used to kind of help facilitate that transition. Do we have a very similar outreach plan for summer school for, you know, kindergartners coming in for the first time as we've had in previous years?
We did. So one of the things that we did in the June part, right, is we didn't actually put in any new entry kindergartners because we had a situation of getting them able to be on a device. That's a learning curve for kindergarten, even in all the best circumstances. And so we decided that we would wait on the June virtual for our new students and really ask them to join us in July, right, for the face-to-face component. So we're ready and poised for that. For everything to go. So
perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
On a related note, one of the conversations we had earlier this week was, as students are keeping their devices over the summer, extending access for those students and their families to some of our learning tools and platforms that we've not typically done, because they usually cycle their devices back. They turn them in for the summer and then we recycle them, you know, in early fall. That is something that we are going to be communicating to families, that as an extension of the fourth quarter, as you keep your device, we're going to continue some of those learning tools and platforms into the summer. So that albeit those numbers in summer school enrollment might be a little bit smaller, we're still going to be able to meet students where they're at and extend their learning, even though they may not have formally signed up for summer school. So just kind of a side note, but we'll be communicating out with families what those learning tools are and how we can assist them even over the summer if there's troubleshooting issues. So appreciate Academic Services thinking through that as well. Other questions for Dr. Westfall or the team? Thanks, Dr. Westfall. Next up then, as far as finance, Ms. Cindy Sullivan.
Hi, everyone. It's good to see you tonight. A couple of things I wanted to add to my report. Wanted to let you know that we have one Audit and Finance Committee member whose term is expiring this year. We have put the application out through Quick News, and it's on the website under the Finance Department page. So if anyone is interested or knows someone interested in applying for that position, encourage them to check that out. Hopefully we will get some interest there. We have nothing as of yet for anyone that has applied, but we'll keep pushing that out. I am also in the process of working on completing all of the requirements to receive the stimulus funds from the county and DESE, and working with Academic Services on the DESE one, and participating in Zoom meetings with our county partners and the officials from the county to make sure we get everything done there to receive those stimulus funds. I also wanted to let you know that late last Friday evening, we received a DESE communication indicating that due to gaming fund shortfalls, our May payment that we will receive this week will not have classroom trust fund in it. So our May payment will be short about $175,000 from the state. I anticipate this could happen again in June, but we will not know anything until later, after the May revenue has been calculated by the state, but we just did find that out. And then tomorrow morning, there is a conference call with Governor Parson at 9:30 that a few of us will be sitting on. And the only subject matter that we know about that conference call was education budget. We did some poking around this afternoon to try and find out if anybody had any idea what that meant, but nobody had been given any information about what that will mean. So I'm sure we'll have an update for you tomorrow about what is happening there. That's all I had in addition to my report that was online. And I am happy to answer any other questions that you might have for me.
Any questions for finance of Cindy this evening? Again, more to come tomorrow as we hear from the governor, and we'll give you the specifics as well in our frequent updates around the classroom trust fund monies. We're anticipating, and I don't know if Cindy mentioned this piece, but we're anticipating kind of a similar effect for the month of June as it relates to receiving a typical June classroom trust fund payment. So we'll share more as we learn more. Thank you, Cindy, for that update.
Thank you.
3.03 then, human resources, Dr. Vogelaar.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tucker. I think, boy, it's apropos to welcome 4 graduating seniors into a Grow Your Own Teacher program at the same time that you're honoring a Teacher of the Year and Support Staff of the Year. Very, very nice to do that, and to celebrate that really with the board is especially important. I think about years ago when Dee and I were ideating around how to grow your own and specifically to really fan the flames of interest in education in our profession in young people's lives. And then the way that Dr. Dixon Seahorn and I first met when she was a consultant with the state working with Paul Katnick specifically on Grow Your Own, and had the opportunity to work with her on some of those statewide committees. To see all of that planning and big picture ideation just come to fruition now with our second class of Grow Your Own Teachers is very exciting to me. And to celebrate that with you is especially important because it is the result of your sharing that vision as a Board of Education, committing yourselves to that vision, supporting through scholarships, $10,000 per student to make this vision a reality. None of this is possible without our Board of Education being behind this, caring about this, the future of our profession and the trends that we're seeing, not just in Liberty, but nationwide, of just a trailing interest in education among kids graduating high school. And all of that is cause for celebration. I hope you guys feel as excited about that news as I do and getting to share that with you. I can't wait. We now have 2 classes of young people going through college, and here in just a few short years, they'll be back here in the classroom with us. I can't wait to see that come to fruition. So I want to carve out a little bit of the HR report to just commend Dr. Dixon Seahorn, Mr. Rosecrans, and the entire steering committee. We identify those in the HR report that was uploaded, but this team of individuals have taken a vision and taken years of ideation and given it legs, and we see the fruit of that. So I am indebted to them. I thank them. I couldn't thank them enough. I know you do as well as a Board of Education, and we're excited to continue to see that just pay off for the sake of kids in our profession. So in the report, Mr. Rosecrans uploaded just a good detailing of the history of GYOT this year. He talks specifically about what we're doing to follow up with these young people as they matriculate college. That's just as important as identifying recipients, is continuing to support them, pairing them up with mentor teachers, professional development opportunities. It's a little bit difficult to mentor and professionally develop young people that go to Arizona State University or in our year 1, the University of Kentucky. But the commitment is still there. The teachers that are volunteering for that mentorship are as passionate about investing in these young people as we are passionate, and that's exciting. So Mr. Rosecrans has detailed that kind of what we call GYOT 2.0, the following or matriculation of those recipients through their program. We don't want to just identify recipients. We want to see them come back and teach kids in our classrooms, make a difference. What's really exciting, kind of an unintentional byproduct, Dr. Dixon Seahorn and I ideated a little bit about this the other day, is that these young people, not only are they going to come back and teach in our schools, but they're ambassadors for our profession and for Liberty Public Schools as they go to college, as they sit in classrooms with college students, They get to talk about how they already have a job and that there's a school district in Kansas City that values their contribution to the profession so much that we would stand behind them with a job, with professional development, with funding. And the hope is that they'll invite some of their classmates as they graduate to maybe want to consider moving here and teaching in our school district as well. This is not just an investment in Liberty Public Schools, but it really is an investment in our profession as a whole. So thank you for that. There's other items on there you guys can read if you have questions about it. I'll be glad to answer, but I really wanted to devote the time to the GYOT celebration today. And as Dallas Ackerman said during the opening remarks, we're also celebrating people who have devoted a career to our profession, many of them exclusively to Liberty Public Schools, who are retiring. This is not the way they probably envisioned their final year of school going, but our hearts are with them. We celebrate with them, and we care very deeply about their legacy as well. Their legacy is unchanged, it's unfazed by this COVID outbreak. They know that. I hope they know that. They certainly feel that. And I know you guys, you care about that as well. So this is just a really fun way to cap and celebrate our profession and the people who have devoted their lives to making a difference in the life of young people. So thank you. Like I said, there's other things in the report. I'll be glad to answer any questions you have, but that's really what we want to spotlight today.
Thanks, Dr. Vogelaar. Any questions from HR this evening?
Yeah, more of a comment. Dr. Vogelaar, you mentioned the Grow Your Own program. You guys made it so easy. I know, Dee and Dr. Dixon Seahorn just did fantastic work, and there were others. I'm not going to get them all right, but who brought this to us and really did the due diligence to make sure it was the right program. We set it up properly. I mean, it was just easy, I think, at least for me, to say, yeah, this is the right thing to do. So appreciate all the work that they do and continue to do on that.
Thank you AJ, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to reaffirm what Dr. Vogelaar has said here. It's like compounding interest on money in the bank. And I hadn't thought as much about their ambassadorships, but that's true, Dr. Vogelaar. They're going to send a signal out here that Liberty's really interested in a diverse teaching staff. And so I think it is a real plus. So job well done to all involved.
I'll say this in respect to honoring excellence. It was neat to see everyone's faces light up, and just really reinforces the value on what we do and why we do it. And that's for kids, for young people. So I was as excited for them as I was to see your faces light up, and really recognizing them, and that it's been a little bit of an absence for the last couple of months, at least, as far as being able to interact with kiddos. So appreciate everyone for taking the time to honor and reflect and recognize both the students and their families for that accomplishment. So again, thank you, Dr. Vogelaar and Dr. Dixon Seahorn and Mr. Rosecrans and everyone for their support of that program. Next up then, moving on to operations, Mr. Anderson.
Yes, thank you. I too want to echo that. That was probably the best honoring excellence I've ever sat through. And I'm realizing that it probably had to do with being able to see everybody rather than kind of looking at a big column to my left. So that was really appreciated, and the families especially. Just a few things real quick. First of all, just a meals update. I've been trying to keep you all posted on that. Looks like by the end of this week, we'll push over the 100,000 number for total meals served. And so again, really appreciate all the crews working on that and serving those families. So that program just continues to be a success, and appreciate all those folks. Wanted to hit real briefly, because I know Dr. Tucker is going to get into it a little more depth here in a minute. As was mentioned earlier by Dr. Westfall, we've been spending quite a bit of time. We have a team of 20 or so folks, senior leaders, that are working in one large group, but also in several smaller subgroups. And really probably the best way to frame this at this time is we're clearly focusing quite a bit of our time and energy on the fall and reentering the fall, kind of that, we're calling that long range, which seems crazy, but considering everything else that's going on right now, that is long range for us. And so that's the reentry work in and around the fall and what it looks like to get back to school in August. We also have short-term and midterm. In the midst, in those areas and categories, we have everything from summer school to closing out the buildings and cleaning out the buildings. Childcare, we have a group working on childcare. We also have a group working on facilities usage. We have a lot of folks that rent and use our facilities, and making sure that we have a plan for communicating that. And then summer activities, activities and camps. And so there's a lot of that going on right now, just to assure you that those conversations are happening. One of the things that I feel pretty good about right now is we're really working hard to make sure that we're able to pull a thread through all of that work so that we're consistent in how we're approaching these things and that we're following the same guidelines throughout. So quite a bit of work there, and certainly more to come as we start wrapping some of this work up. And then last, just a real quick update on progress over at Liberty High School. I talked to Archie Smith this afternoon just to get an update. Everything continues to progress really well there. I think they're feeling more and more confident as the weeks go on about being ready for August and the start of school. So I had a good report on that work. In addition, they will begin work in the 800s in the atrium area probably next week with demolition. And so that'll be a pretty messy, destructive process, but our hope is to have that clean and ready for kind of to finish up construction once we hit the fall. And as a reminder, that work will extend into kind of August, September, October. And that is all I had, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Anderson this evening? Okay, thank you, Steve, appreciate that. Transitioning then, but I'm going to add to what Mr. Anderson was saying for my report around reentry and reopening planning. We were talking earlier this afternoon, and I was reminded of something a professor shared with me as I was writing my dissertation, and it was kind of in that moment where you're stuck or you're in a funk, and that's when I learned about the value of navigating ambiguity. But he left a word picture with me, and it was kind of being stuck or in the middle of a swamp. And so we've been trying to navigate the swamp here the last few days from where we left off at our study session and kind of teeing up that transition to reentry and reopening planning earlier this month. We've done a lot of work over the course of the last couple of weeks, and not an hour or a day goes by where that is not top of mind. So thank you to Mr. Anderson, Academic Services, HR, Finance, everyone on this screen in some way or form or fashion is working around reentry and reopening planning. As we think about that, there are some key documents and guidance that we're seeing, whether it's from the Center for Disease Control, whether it's from Clay County Public Health Department, the City of Kansas City, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, Missouri School Boards Association released their guidance earlier this week that we are approaching as simply a set of resources. But those are informing the work and the energies and the effort as we think about reopening and reentry. Really compartmentalizing that in a couple of key pieces. There are those pieces that we are currently living in, so call that the near term or the current state. There are pieces that are a little bit more midterm, so maybe deeper into June and July, and then those pieces that are a little bit longer term as we think about the start of school in August. So to give you some examples, in the month of May and June, those pieces that are a little bit closer to us in the near term would be examples like preparing for end-of-year closeout, plans putting in place for that, or kindergarten roundup, or preps for summer school, that virtual piece. As we think about kind of that midterm piece, what does July look like as it relates to activities, extracurricular events, as it relates to the possibility of sitting face-to-face with some students in face-to-face summer school, but then thinking about that long-term piece as we restart school in August and the various scenarios that that involves. So as we think about those three approaches, be it the near term, the midterm, the long term, there are some key categories that we've identified, partly through our own thinking, but then also by leveraging these resources and creating some type of a roadmap or crosswalk. And so we've landed on about 8 categories. Those categories include governance. That's certainly the role that the board has played since we started these conversations 9 weeks ago, all the way through to where we're currently at, but then also as we think about the future. The second piece is certainly leading with health and safety, top of mind. The third category would be the academic or the instructional learning approach and what that could look like over the coming weeks and months and into the fall. The next category would be technology, and that plays a critical role, and we feel very blessed to have a one-to-one approach and all of the energies that our staff, teachers, students, and families have put into that transition to learning at home. And we know that that will be an important piece as we think about all of our approaches into the fall semester. There's a human resource element there as we think about our staff and their specific needs. Even onboarding new teachers in August looks a little bit different as we think about teachers prepping for both a face-to-face classroom environment, but then also needing to have at the ready that virtual approach in the event that we need to approach it in more of a blended fashion, or perhaps an additional shelter in place at some point later in the fall. In addition to that, certainly monitoring the fiscal piece, the budget piece as it relates to business services and the impending impact as far as an economic downturn on our region, our state, our school district certainly, and how to navigate federal stimulus dollars. That's a key component in this to ensure that we're continuing to support our learners in pre-K through grade 12. The operations element, as was shared earlier, touches every single piece of our district and is critical in readying for reopening, resupplying, but then also thinking about the logistics of meeting the needs of 13,000 of our students and nearly 2,000 employees, as well as our entire community. And the last piece, and he jumped off the meeting, but the last piece is certainly the role that communications and messaging has to play. And how do we approach that differently as we exit a school year, as we shut down a school year, but want to continue to stay engaged with our staff, with our families, with our students, on what typically they would be doing in terms of rolling into the summer. We want to provide surveying opportunities, focus groups, opportunity to provide feedback as we design what fall opportunities look like in Liberty Public Schools. So again, it's a huge lift, but as those pieces start formalizing, we'll certainly bring those forward for the board for your feedback and your consideration. But then also you want to look at opportunities to involve our community in designing those approaches for the fall. Pivoting briefly then to the legislative session. Legislative session concluded last week. We saw a couple of things that we were watching closely that did not get across the finish line, and those were a couple of omnibus bills. And albeit there were certain pieces within those bills that we liked, there were other pieces that were piled on that really were somewhat overwhelming and detrimental to schools. So we were fortunate to see those tabled for the time being, but we also know that there's a high likelihood of another session that will likely occur later this summer. Out of that legislative session this spring, we did see a budget that then will be delivered to Governor Parson for consideration. As we mentioned earlier and Cindy shared, we will see what that call has in store tomorrow and relay that to the board as it relates to the education budget. Another piece tied to kind of the system in our district I mentioned in our board report was really our organizational structure and making adjustments and changes to meet where we're currently at. And so we've been working on that closely with academic services. And as you'll recall, we posted earlier this spring the position for Assistant Superintendent for Academic Services. We have decided to close that position, reassess the department in terms of a rebranding opportunity, as well as looking at the roles and responsibilities of our executive directors. And so we're continuing to work through that, and we'll bring more information to the board at our study session in June, and then final consideration for those changes at our June board meeting. The last thing that I would share is for the class of 2020, you've seen a lot of celebrations, whether it's in your own neighborhood or whether it's on social media, be it by coaches, by administrators, by parents, by loved ones. But over the weekend, we did have our parents and community organize a couple of parades. Saw a couple of you at that, and I think that was very well received, an opportunity to spotlight and celebrate our seniors. So I appreciate academic services for continuing to solicit their feedback in terms of wanting to just continue to celebrate them, be it a student organized baccalaureate, or be it the commencement exercises, or some type of a prom or senior celebration. So we'll continue to keep messaging and communicate with families once we're able to have some of those larger gatherings or events. With that said, we'd certainly open it up to any of you for questions that you might have of me this evening.
don't have any questions. I just have just a couple comments. First, I have had multiple instances recently where people in the community have said to me, what are we going to do in the fall? And I said, well, I don't know. No one knows yet. But I feel really comfortable that we are planning for multiple possibilities all at the same time. And along the way, every time someone has said, well, when are we going to hear about this? The communication comes out. And so while we're doing planning, while you all are doing planning and trying to figure out what we're going to do, the communication is also coming at the right time. And it just feels really comfortable and like we're in good hands. So I appreciate all of that in the midst of all this unscriptedness. It feels good to have a lot of confidence in what all of you are doing. So thank you.
Well, and thank you for that. We were talking with Dallas this afternoon, and even at that 9-week point from where we were 9 weeks ago to now, our communication strategy is going to have to shift as we think about families disconnecting for the summer, staff disconnecting for the summer. So even later this week on Thursday, we're going to record a message tomorrow that's going to get pushed out on Thursday with some key items for students, staff, and families. But then also a little bit of a call to action to stay connected over the course of the summer. We're going to push out a brief survey this week. You know, how was your fourth quarter experience? What are your thoughts, concerns, considerations for the future, the fall? But then also probably try to do that every few weeks as we get more pieces of our plan kind of solidified and pull feedback and ideas in from our community. So I appreciate that. Now we're trying to figure out what the next 9 weeks looks like in communicating and messaging and planning. So it truly is a team effort along all fronts.
AJ Bird here. Just want to talk a little bit about the reorganization around academic services. I really think it's seizing the opportunity at the right time. Some of us who have went to some of the various meetings about equity have seen where real changes come as a result of having some coordination and some leadership in that area. And so I think this is a very opportune time to pursue this. And I'm looking forward to hearing more regarding how we might put this into place.
Yeah, thank you for that. More to come as we unpack that and begin to shore up our plans for the restructuring.
You know, it struck me as Jeanette was giving the update on summer school and how different families are reacting to the situation. Are ready to send their kids in face-to-face, and some are very much not. And I see that in so many places I go these days. And so as you talk through the litany, Jeremy, of important considerations that have to do with safety and funding and safety of staff and all of those kinds of topics, it is a very challenging environment we are in right now. And a lot of those threads intersect in what you are working on. So I appreciate the leadership and the complexity. At the end of the day, there's got to be a way to move forward. And people's attitudes towards this are range more widely than many of the other things that we've ever had to deal with, I think. And so figuring out how there can be a plan that moves forward but allows people to, maybe calibrate their level of engagement.
And I think that's an important piece in that we have had some conversations with teacher teams and students, and some are very well aware of what some of those scenarios might be in thinking about the fall and programming, whereas others are just now really kind of coming to the realization because we're prodding them a little bit and thinking about, what if this happens, or what if this occurs, and what does the fall look like? But you're exactly correct. There are a lot of opinions, a lot of thoughts, a lot of ideas, all valid. But at the same time, we want to lead with safety and health of everyone, be it our students or staff, but then also the learner at the center and making decisions around 13,000 kiddos in our system. So I appreciate that feedback.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be your point about people tend to unplug at this time. That continued conversation as these ideas emerge throughout the coming months is going to be important to help socialize those thoughts, so they don't show up on August 17th or whatever. Have a different mind.
Right, absolutely. So that'll be key as we think about the communication and messaging piece. So.
And I actually think this year we'll see even more unplugging. If my experience is any example, kids want to unplug as soon as they can for a break. So, and families. So we may see even more.
They might be ready to plug in sooner.
Maybe they just need a little break.
Yeah, you know, that's something I've been thinking about too, and something I talked to somebody about the other day. Are we giving teachers kind of a break too here pretty soon, where they're going to have kind of a blackout, get away from it time period for a couple of weeks?
Yes, albeit keep in mind you have some that are also pivoting to summer school.
Right.
So that will start up as far as that June virtual session. But even that participation is down, obviously, given our numbers. But yeah, hopefully they'll have a little bit of a reprieve, but then also soliciting their engagement and involvement over the course of the summer in ideating and designing some of these scenarios as we think about the fall. So we absolutely want their feedback and input in these processes and decisions that need to be made for the fall, but absolutely time for them to take for themselves and hopefully re-energize in what is going to be a little non-traditional summer.
Yeah. Yeah, Kim Marie's comments just reminded me of that. So, right, thank you.
Yeah, and I know, Dr. Tucker, within your report, you've outlined, hey, we're going to get feedback from students and staff and families. I know we do a great job with students and staff, and we've got, you know, good voices there. I want to be cognizant that we are, you know, reaching families and asking questions about their experience. I'll call it being education managers, right? Because they're not necessarily creating the lesson plans, but they're making sure they get executed, that they get done at home. And it's a very personal experience. It's been an incredibly challenging process, especially with young elementary kids. So just continue to kind of push on that specifically.
Yeah, and that's how we get better, right? And I've also seen an increased appreciation for the role of the teacher as parents have added that to their plate in terms of their hats that they've had to kind of navigate. So we've heard that as well. A lot to celebrate, but then certainly a lot of lessons learned and things that we can do differently as we move forward. So yeah, all voices are integral to that. So. Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. That concludes the reports from administration. We move on to unfinished business. 4.01 preliminary budget.
This is kind of swampy too, just because of the fluidity and lack of financial information that we have to really kind of project and think about the future. But I do have to give all the credit to our business services department, some of which are coming in and some of which are working remotely, but Cindy Sullivan obviously leads that group as our CFO. But then behind that department, we know there are directors and principals also responsible for managing budgets that are trying to figure this out as we go as well. So we wanted to share some insights from the finance office, business services office, as to where we are today, knowing that in budget planning in any given year, as soon as you approve a budget, it's antiquated the next day. This is going to be continuing to be kind of our MO, our mode over the course of the next several weeks and months into the fall, as we know the overall impact of COVID-19 on our economy. So I'm going to turn it over to Cindy, and I think she's going to share a presentation with us this evening on the preliminary budget for FY21.
Can you enable me to share my screen?
You can do that. Yeah.
There we go. Can you see my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Okay. So as Dr. Tucker said, swampy is a great word for where we're at. That's not the word I used when I told him where I thought we were at, but his is a better word. I do want to take the time to thank all of the people behind the scenes, as Dr. Tucker said. It's been very challenging to put all this together, working remotely with people and trying to do our best to make the appropriate changes to hopefully give us some flexibility with where we're headed with the economy. We have posted for you the preliminary pieces of the preliminary budget document that give you the biggest picture of where things are at. And the pieces stopped moving about a week ago so we could prepare the document that you see posted for you tonight. So we already know and are aware of changes that will be made when we present the final document to you at the end of May. Tonight, I just want to take a few minutes to walk you through the primary changes for each revenue and expenditure budget so you will know what we're thinking and why we have done what we have done. We're going to start with the total revenue budget for all funds. And as you can see, we are showing a slight increase of around $950,000 in the total revenue budget over last year. The percentages are still very consistent, with the majority of our total revenue coming from local sources, followed by state sources. If we break that down for the operating budget, you will see that it has increased by about $1.2 million. This is all coming from the state revenue. Every other category did decrease, is how we're projecting that out. You will notice that the projections, the percentages on these projections, that local and state revenue are much more closer to sharing that 50-50. In the operating revenue budget, we are anticipating these primary changes. Local tax revenue, we're anticipating $5.6 million of an increase. That is based on a 3% growth rate and also some pilots rolling off of payments in lieu of taxes into operating revenue. So the portion that of the 5.6 million that is pilot payments is about $4.2 million. The remaining $1.4 million is for the 3% projected growth in assessed valuation. I did talk with a couple of people at the county. They did not have any information to share with me. They are working diligently to get the values certified so that they can give us preliminary numbers in June. So I really don't have any more information on that than I had last month when we talked about this. But next month, we will be able to update that for you based upon those preliminary numbers that the county should be able to find for us. We are also have $1.76 million increase in grant revenue in this budget, and that is primarily for the Children's Services Fund grant that we are anticipating getting, working with Jessica Meisenheimer on that. So both the revenue and expenditures will be increased by that. Basic formula is projected as of last week to increase $1.36 million. We have not been informed at this point that the state is withholding on revenues. That tomorrow may change, so more to come on that. The basic formula piece is consistent with two pieces, one being growth, and that is based on the demographer data of 120 students, and that is about $921,000. The other increase in that basic formula revenue is an additional $443,000 of a decrease that we anticipated last year that we didn't anticipate last year. It's the truing up of the formula that we talked about last month. So that turns around and is a swing the other way this year when we haven't had that withhold yet. Classroom trust fund, we will be receiving all of that into operating this year. So that will put another $1.5 million into operating if the classroom trust fund revenue holds up. As we said earlier tonight, that was the one thing that we're not going to be receiving in May. So that may indeed become a casualty as we move forward into this year as well. On the decreases side, we have chosen to decrease the school district trust fund, which is Prop C, which is sales tax revenue. And we've taken that down by 2% based upon the formulas that they are using. We think it won't be realized at the rate it has been this year. Pilots are decreasing $5.8 million approximately, and that's what I talked about earlier. Along with the increase on the operating side, you also have a decrease in the pilot side, so they just offset each other. But I did want to put them on there separately, so you will see that they do play into both an increase and a decrease. Interest rates are so very low, about 0.56% on our funds that are in MOSIP right now is what we're earning. So we've taken that revenue down quite a bit since those rates are so low. We also decreased Kids Zone revenue by $516,000, not fully knowing what the program will look like this summer and what it will look like in the fall and what kind of participation we may or may not have if parents are hesitant to send their kids to camp with other kids. We know we've talked about transportation withholdings. We've already experienced those, and that will probably be cut further in the next year. So we went ahead and decreased that, and based on new information we're getting, probably will end up taking it down a little more during June. So you may see a little more cut in that in the June document. And also our high needs fund, at the point that we were putting all of this together, the special education department projected fewer students that will qualify for high needs funds. So we did reduce that revenue as well. Also, not on this document are any changes in revenue that will be further caused by the coronavirus. So we will continue to monitor that and make changes as necessary there. Debt service and capital revenue, they're highlighted by the red box. You can see that debt service increased by $1.7 million over last year's budget, and that is just simply due to an increase in local tax revenue coming in. Capital projects did decrease by $1.9 million. Part of that is due to the $1.5 million that will be booked into operating instead of capital projects budget. And interest income from bond funds will not be as prolific as it was this year, just for two reasons. The rates are down and the money is being spent. The majority of money was in there last year that earned quite a bit of interest for us, so we've decreased that. And also then it experienced a little bit of an uptick in the interest, or in the increase in local revenue from the increase in the assessed valuation. So we're going to move then on quickly to the, does anybody have a question? Okay, we're going to go on to the expenditure budgets. This is the expenditure budget for all funds. It's a little bit misleading here. It did decrease by 25 million, but that is due primarily to the bond projects wrapping up. We will not have any more expenditures there. So we had 37 million last year in capital projects, only 13 this year. And we've also decreased capital purchases overall this year, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. And then debt service and lease has decreased because of the defeasance of the bonds that we had last year, which we won't have this year. So that 25 million is a bit misleading. The 2021 budget is more in line with what a normal budget year should look like. So you can see that. In the operating expenditure budget, we have an increase of $4.6 million. You can see the percentages there are right in line with the last year as far as the distribution of where our expenditures are going in the operating budget. Our salaries and benefits are right at 79.5% of our total operating budget, which is typical for a normal district that does not outsource transportation or nutrition services. So we are very much in line with our counterparts, with 80% of our budget going towards salaries and benefits. The primary changes to the operating expenditure budget increases primarily salaries and benefits, and those changes account for steps, education movement, CBIZ Phase 2, new staff allocations, and the insurance renewal. All of that is about $4.8 million in total for the salaries and benefits. Tuition expenditures will increase. That's primarily for special education, which was $182,000 of that. Vocational education, we increased that by $130,000. And early college, we increased that budget by $70,000 to spend more money for our kids to get outside experiences at those educational institutions. We are increasing the transportation budget by $179,000 for contracted transportation, primarily for special education. And we increased utilities by $300,000 just due to the expense of heating, cooling, lighting our buildings. The decreases that we experienced were general supplies of $207,000, technology supplies of $332,000, repairs and maintenance, which is primarily deferred maintenance and other maintenance that comes through the capital process. That's an operating expenditure in an effort to put some money back into the operating budget. We've decreased some travel to try and find some savings there. Property insurance went down, and we have decreased our contracted professional development, relying more on our instructional coaches next year to do things that they are able to do instead of paying others to do. And that was a result of working with the committees and determining from the survey that this is what our teachers wanted. So I have to really give a shout out to academic services and operation leaders, as well as building leaders, for already working on identifying these savings in light of the economic downturn that we're going to experience. I appreciate so much they're jumping up to help in this cause. And we are all aware that we may have to identify more of these things to work on decreasing. And they are all very supportive of working through this process with me. So I do appreciate all of their efforts already in next year's budget preparation. Debt service, you will see this expenditure budget is what it is. We have to pay off our debt per the terms as when we incurred the debt. You will see that it is decreasing, and that is mainly due to the redemption and defeasance of Series 2010B and 2011 bonds that we did this spring already. So that is the change in this budget. Capital and expenditure budget, Mr. Anderson presented this to you at last month's meeting, showing that it has decreased by $4.1 million, and capital expenditures this coming year will primarily be for building upkeep and operational capital purchases for nutrition services, technology, and for buses. The other piece in this budget is the leases, which is our lease participation certificates, and our capital lease for our one-to-one technology. And finally, here's our general budget summary. You will see that our operating revenues are lower for the first time in a very long time than our operating expenditures at this point in our budget season. What that means is that we will be dipping into our reserves somewhat to pay for the expenditures in excess of the operating revenues. But in this economic downturn, that's why we have fund to balance reserves, so that we are able to do this and run the business as needed to be. We look forward to bringing you a final budget in June. We know that many of the operational considerations and the budget implications due to COVID-19 are really unknown at this time. We will continue to revise this budget as we go through the next month, and we will bring the changes in it to you at the next meeting so that you are aware of what has changed between now and the time we present to you in June. And that's all I have on the budget, and I would love to have any questions that you might have of me.
Any questions of Cindy this evening?
Not really a question, Cindy, but thanks to you and the team for working through this. I know this is a difficult process in general, but then certainly layering in on the remote aspect of things. You guys have done a great job at, as always, at anticipating what we think the best guesses are going to be. So appreciate that.
Thank you.
Nice job with the best guessing. This is crazy. And I'm sure it is a headache for you and your staff, and amazing job.
Thank you.
Other questions of Cindy? Okay, more to come as we think about our June study session, and then obviously getting that across the finish line toward the latter part of June, and setting up next year's budget. So again, thank you to Cindy and her team.
All right, we will go on to 4.02, the 2021 compensation plan.
So then on a related note, and Cindy mentioned this as part of the anticipated expenditures for next year, we started earlier this spring, as we do each year, even in around March, in finalizing some of the recommendations in and around schedules for this coming year. Saw it again in April, saw it again at our May study session. Just wanted to bring this forward to you again. And so you have multiple documents that reflect the salary recommendation that was developed from Team Liberty to me and then shared with the board. So there are some minor revisions that we've added along the way, but again, wanting to ensure that we have as good of a picture as to what next year's financial situation looks like before we finalize this recommendation. So we will look to June in terms of bringing this forward as an action item, but wanted to again capture it just for everyone's attention and visibility. Then also asked Dr. Vogelaar if he wanted to share anything in and around the adjustments that we've seen since the last time Team Liberty met.
Thank you, Dr. Tucker. Certainly, we've kind of kept you apprised of this through Friday updates as we go, but ongoing kind of reorganization conversations, efficiency structures, ways of kind of rolling out the work of various departments is an ongoing process. And so there are three schedules that have revisions associated with them. One is the miscellaneous stipend schedule, and that reflects changes with regard to PDC, PDC coordinator and PDC representative, and then the elimination of an OER coordinator. And that was a part of kind of a restructuring to create some efficiencies within that PDC work. There's a modification to the miscellaneous rates of pay schedule with the addition of developmental screeners for the Early Childhood Center, and that's a way to compensate people who work over the summer to provide developmental screening for eligibility for the Early Childhood Program. Again, as part of the kind of restructuring within that workload for Dr. Burke, a more efficient way to do that. And then, of course, what Dr. Tucker referenced earlier about some reorganizational conversations in academic services and cabinet. So an admin schedule reflects, I guess, the readiness for those reorganizational decisions as they roll out. So those three schedules are different than what was presented on March 24th. And really they're designed to be responsive to those efficiency conversations. The good news is that in every one of those new schedules, significant savings has been recaptured. The restructuring has produced quite a bit of cost savings as a byproduct of those reorganizational conversations.
Any questions or discussion on that? We'll certainly pick up with that at our study session in June as one of our agenda items as we ready for wrapping up this year and approving our organizational chart in June. So are you going to add something, Ms. Reed? Okay.
Nope.
I think that's it, Mr. Rothman, on that one.
Okay. I think that concludes our unfinished business. More to come on both of those items then in our meetings in June. So our one item of new business now, we've got 5.01 contracts and purchases. Looks like we've got a few things here to approve.
Yeah, so this one is under one education partner, but in multiple parts. And that we've had a working relationship with Power School over the years in assisting us with our student information system, among other things. We've kind of expanded the modules and services that they are going to be providing the district. So wanted to turn it over to Dr. Vogelaar to walk us through the restructuring or kind of the contracts associated with Power School.
Certainly. Thank you, Dr. Tucker. The RFP associated with the applicant tracking system is just part of our routine reevaluation of better ways to do business and also opportunities to maybe renegotiate some savings through that competitive marketplace. And so the Power School contract that went through an RFP was specific to the applicant tracking system. Power School provides a suite of 3 different programs for us, but those programs can be unbundled if we find a more effective partner, a more cost-effective partner, or just a more effective system. So the applicant tracking system is part of that suite of softwares that includes Perform, which is an evaluation-based software system, and Records, which is our electronic personnel records file management system. For respondents to the RFP regarding applicant tracking system, as we vetted all of those and negotiated with each of those respondents to the RFP, we did decide to come to you with a recommendation to stay with Power School. We were able to negotiate down the price of Power School. They came in very competitive, but then after negotiation, I was able to get about another $4,000, $4,700 off of that annual price. And again, that's a byproduct of just forcing vendors to compete through the RFP process. So what's up for consideration is for you to grant that partnership to continue. It would be a renewal, but a renewal that is significant savings so that we can ensure continuity in our applicant tracking system as we go through the rest of the hiring season.
Any questions on that item then?
If no questions, then there's a recommended motion if someone's ready to make that.
I move the board approve the community partner funding certification and Power School agreements.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing and hearing nothing, we're ready for a vote, please.
AJ,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Angie,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Kim Marie,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
motion carries.
All right, that concludes our new business, I believe. And we are on to 6.01 upcoming meetings. You'll see a few items there. June 2nd, that's traditionally been our board retreat, and we are tossing around ideas of potentially doing a retreat maybe a little bit later in the year given the current circumstances, but we will at a minimum have a study session June 2nd. And then we've moved our June meeting instead of the 3rd Tuesday. It's going to be the last Tuesday of June so that we've got the freshest data available possible, at least at that point, for our budget. Any questions on any of those dates? All right, we've got an item here. It's a MOSIP election authorization. You want to explain that one to us, Dr. Tucker?
We have a couple of individuals that are running unopposed, and as members of MOSIP, the Board of Education then obviously gets to vote on those individuals. So the ballot is reflecting Mr. Charles Quinn and Dr. Anthony Rossetti to serve on the Board of Directors for the Missouri Securities Investment Program.
Any questions on that? Ready for a motion then?
I move
the board vote for Mr. Charles Quinn and Dr. Anthony Rossetti to serve on the board of directors in the Missouri Securities Investment Program, MOSIP.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing and hearing nothing, we're ready for a vote, please.
AJ,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Angie,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Kim Marie,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
motion carries.
All right. Next is board remarks. Anyone have any remarks to share this evening?
Yeah, so I alluded to it earlier. First off, kudos to the teachers and staff and administration for getting through this process of what we've gone through, creating lesson plans and adapting and doing different things. It's been really great to have that set up. But I'll recognize, whether it's parents or grandparents or siblings or whomever, we're the education managers. I know this has been a challenging time for them as they've navigated career and life and everything else, and then also taking this on. So keeping their students, kids on track, our students, making sure that we're all in the same process, I think has been great. So lockstep with everybody. Appreciate all the work that everybody has put into all this.
Anyone else? I wanted to just thank and recognize the building leaders, the teachers, everyone who's done their best to try to celebrate. In particular, of course, our 5th graders, our 8th graders, and our seniors. Those are ongoing celebrations with the parades and signs in the yards. It's hopefully going to develop into some things that when things are normal in the future, we can continue some of those traditions. They've been pretty amazing. And if there are no other remarks, we do have some items to address in closed session, and we can go to 7.01, and we're ready for a motion to adjourn to closed. So let's make that motion.
I move the board adjourn closed session, including any record or vote, for the purpose of discussing legal privilege communications with district attorneys and personnel as provided by law, subsection 610.021, sections 1, 3, 13 RSMO.
Second.
Discussion on the motion, please.
AJ,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Angie,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Kim Marie,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
motion carries.
All right, we are adjourned to closed. Everyone go ahead and leave this session and then enter the closed session meeting. Thank you.
Thank you all.